Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and a Fox News contributor. Charlie, what do you make of what we heard from the president today responding to the death of Navalny? And how big is this moment in terms of measuring his ability to respond to a power like Russia, to something that he said previously would have devastating consequences if it came to pass?
Yeah, well, the whole speech was kind of strange, especially with that sort of glitch, yet another glitch in the middle of it that doesn't, I don't think, give a whole lot of people a whole lot of faith in his ability to lead. And of course, obviously, the rest of the world, including Putin, is watching. But in terms of his attacks on Vladimir Putin, obviously, Vladimir Putin is a thug and should be held responsible for anything that what has happened to Navalny. But the larger question is then why has your administration and the policies of your administration done everything you could to pave the way for Vladimir Putin to run rampant in his part of the world? And why have all of your policies given the green light from jacking up oil and gas prices that made Vladimir Putin wealthy enough to invade Ukraine, to his failure to prevent the invasion of Ukraine? It sort of beggars belief to hear him trying to attack his predecessor for Vladimir Putin on this sad day, instead of sort of looking inwardly and trying to figure out, well, what can you do to contain Vladimir Putin? What can you do to not continue to help Vladimir Putin?
I thought it was unusual in the news conference that the president was asked about something he said back in 2021, where he said that there would be dire consequences for Russia if Navalny died in custody. And when he was asked about the question earlier today, just a few minutes ago, here's what he said.
That was 3 years ago. In the meantime, they faced a hell of a lot of consequences. They've lost and/or had wounded over 350,000 Russian soldiers. They've made in a position where they've been subjected to great sanctions across the board, and we're contemplating what else could be done.
He said, okay, so what I said was 3 years ago. They faced a lot of consequences since then, but nothing related to Navalny. So right. Is that an indication, Charlie, that he's not planning on doing anything?
Yeah, it sure sounds from that like he's talking about moving the red line again, which, of course, is never what you do when you're dealing with somebody like Vladimir Putin. And, of course, that kind of appeasement, and we've seen this in other parts of the world, specifically Iran, but that kind, or Hamas, that kind of appeasement is what allows people, allows somebody like Vladimir Putin to do exactly what it is that he's doing on the world stage today.
Charlie, the administration has broadly, sort of framed its response to Putin's aggression through what it can do to help Ukraine. Obviously, on Capitol Hill, there's a bitter battle to secure more funding. But the president has said that he can, in fact, do more through executive action on the border. There was an NBC report, I think, 2 weeks ago saying that they were weighing something like that. Does this moment make it ripe for him to take some sort of executive action to appease the Republicans in the House who are saying, look, we won't do anything for Ukraine until we do something about the border? Does this increase pressure on him to do something unilaterally and not just punt it to Congress?
Well, you would hope that this would be an opportunity for the president to try to work with Republicans and actually get something done to secure our border. But, the larger problem that Joe Biden and a lot of Republicans have with regards to funding Ukraine is that they have not successfully made the case to the American people that this is in the American people's vital best interest, that they should send $60 billion more to Ukraine. And, he talks about how, Russia has suffered all of these sanctions and all of this punishment. But, I don't know that the rest of the world looks at this and sees Russia as particularly suffering. Obviously, the war in Ukraine has not gone smoothly the way Vladimir Putin, I think, probably anticipated. There are a lot of reasons for that, but I don't think it's because of the sanctions. In fact, it was, as I said, it was his policies from day one that jacked up gas prices around the world that made Vladimir Putin the wealthiest rogue dictator on the planet, which allowed him to launch the war in the first place. But remember also, before the invasion, he assured us that the administration's sanctions against Moscow were going to prevent him from invading in the first place. That didn't work. I don't think they're working now either.
And they couldn't give a good reason back then for why they wouldn't impose preemptive sanctions. They were just like, the threat of sanctions is going to turn Putin's mind. Obviously, it didn't. All right. Charlie Hurt, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Charlie. Good to see you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.